Hey everyone, it's Lexi and I'm back with another video, and this video is going to be my very first book review, and that review will be on Gone by Michael Grant. I really don't want this to be a super long video, so I'm just going to jump straight into it. Gone by Michael Grant is the first in a series of 6 books. It's just called the Gone series, I guess, and there's 5 other books in the series. There's Hunger, Lies, Plague, Fear, and Light. And this is just the first one in the series, so I'm going to tell you guys what it's about. Basically, Gone is the story of a bunch of kids who live in this small town called Perdido Beach, California. And in the middle of the day, every adult in the town just spontaneously disappears, as well as everyone the age of 15 and over. So just these kids are sitting in class, their teachers disappear, they go home, their parents are gone, and now they're stuck fending for themselves, trying to find food and figuring out how to survive when the only people they can rely on are no older than the age of 14. First thing I want to discuss is the characters. Now, the main problem that I had with this book was that there were so many characters that are listed and described to you, but they're really hard to maintain in memory. I think just in this book alone there's over 48 characters that are brought in, described, and given all these really unique personalities, and I was really only good at retaining memories of what maybe 10 of them looked like, including the 2 main characters, Sam and Astrid. So a lot of the other ones I got confused and I had to look back in the book and see like where they'd been mentioned before and what they did. But as for the main characters, like the 10 that are mentioned over and over and over again, I really loved how all of them were developed. The main character, Sam, is actually a really great character to root for, even though he's only 14 years old. He's very relatable and he's very understandable and really not too mature for his age, or too immature. He's just very well fit right in the middle. As well as the antagonist characters, who are these kids from a rival school on like the other side of Perdido Beach called Coates Academy. There are these 2 really great antagonists named Kane and Drake, and they're so evil for just being 14. And at the same time, it's not really unrealistic given their situations. And one of my favorite parts about the characters in this book is that they all undergo such a major transition in just a really short amount of time because, I mean, without adults, everything kind of just descends into chaos and they have to decide who's going to be a leader and who's going to be a doctor and all these things that adults would have done for them, and now they have to take care of themselves. Particularly Sam's development is really great. I also love the development of his friendships. And then, like I said, the antagonists are really great characters in that they start off just being bullies, which is normal for kids their age, but as a few days start to go by, they turn into these vicious monsters that just want to control everything and end up making some pretty frightening things happen. The next thing I want to talk about is the plot. The plot was actually my favorite part of the entire book because of all of these crazy twists and things that happen that, in a way, are really unexpected and just don't feel like they could happen at all, but at the same time, the situation itself is already so chaotic and out of hand that it kind of just fits. And it gets to this point where every 100 or so pages you feel like they're going to solve this major problem, and then they get to it and then something else happens, and it just keeps going and going and going. And I found myself zooming through the first 250 pages of this book, which is about half the book. I mean, it's pretty chunky, it's like 500 pages. And I read the first 250 in a day because I was just zooming through and I didn't believe half the things that were happening. And yet it's so compelling and fast-paced that you kind of just can't help reading it. I mean, imagine yourself being stuck in this situation and then these things happening, and it's pretty freaking terrifying. I just realized that I wasn't wearing my sweater and it got pretty freaking cold in here, so now it's back. Anyways, there's a lot of things that happen and they're really fun to read about. I mean, I'm gonna tell you guys some of them. These kids start to develop powers. That's not really a spoiler. They tell you on the back synopsis, and then these animals start talking, getting mutations, and start acting really weird and becoming a really big part of the entire story. There's a lot that goes on, and if you're looking for a fast-paced read, even if it may be a little bit chunky, this is definitely something I would recommend picking up. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is the writing style. And the writing style in this book is really unique, but it also fits the storyline really well. The language is not super complicated and doesn't like destroy the meaning of the story, but it's also not overly simple. And I feel like if the characters themselves were writing this book down like in a journal, recalling them as if the events had already passed, they would write it pretty much in the exact same language that Michael Grant writes it. Even though the story itself is told in third person because it has to touch so many different characters, it's really fitting to the age that most of these characters are, which is like 13, 14, and I feel like this is how they would write, but at the same time it's not vapid or immature. It's really fitting. And one of my favorite parts about the book is the chapter titles. So the first chapter is obviously chapter 1, but it's also got the timeline 299 hours and 54 minutes on it. And every single chapter in the book counts down further and further back, and it's counting down to the main character Sam's 15th birthday. And obviously on everyone's 15th birthday is when they start to disappear after all the adults had originally disappeared. So it's kind of this mad dash to try and figure out how Sam is going to try and escape the fact that he is going to just poof out. And it's really crazy because its countdown's really slowly at first, from like 299 hours to 298, 296, and just their first few hours of freaking out about the entire situation. But towards the end of the book, it jumps really fast, and you go from 120 hours to 72 hours, and then you realize, holy crap, Sam's only got 3 days until he turns 15. And I took a little break between the first half and the second half of the book because I had to go to school, but as soon as it got back in, and the hours started jumping like crazy, that's when you really start picking up again. And I think that's another really compelling thing that Michael Grant does. I believe he continues to do that with the rest of the series, like putting the little timeline on the front of every chapter title. I'm not sure though, but that's a really good way to draw in the reader, particularly with the other ones, since, well, I'm not going to spoil what happens at the very end, but after Sam's 15th birthday, I'm really looking forward to what else they'll be counting down to, and if it's not really clear at the beginning of the book, I feel like you would want to keep reading even if you don't know exactly what's going to happen at the very end. So I really approve of this writing style, and I definitely enjoyed it. Also, the dialogue is very realistic. I feel like I've said that word a lot in this video, but it doesn't feel fake. It feels like things that actual 14-year-olds and young kids and teenagers would say in these situations. If you can't tell, I really enjoyed this book, and I believe I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Like I said, I just had a few issues with how many characters there were, and I had a little bit of trouble getting back into it after I read the first half, but that was mainly my fault. I don't think there was anything particularly wrong in the middle of this book. There may have been a couple like boring patches, but they really didn't last more than like 10 pages before something else extreme happened. I will most likely be continuing on with this series. My best friend has a copy of Hunger that he's in the middle of, and I can't wait till he finishes it so I can get my hands on it. But I would highly recommend this book and think you guys should definitely check it out. I know it came out a few years ago, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have read it, but if you haven't, definitely check it out. So that was my review, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know down in the comments if you have read this book and your thoughts on the series, or any other books you might want me to do reviews on, anything like that. I should be back with another video in the next couple of days. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do for my next video. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I'll work on it. So anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!